Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program, an extended maternity leave bill moves forward at the House of Representatives.
This is not a bill for the opposition. This is a bill for the majority of Filipinos.
So does the anti-discrimination bill.
Finally, we have a bill that will recognize the rights of our LGBT brothers and sisters.
Also, the Philippines is one of the last countries where divorce remains illegal. Could that change soon? House Deputy Speaker and Taguig City Representative Pia Cayetano joins us live. And later, take a glimpse of these unique artworks made from sand and water. That's for today's In Focus. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. The House of Representatives approves on second reading a proposal to extend maternity leave. The bill hopes to extend paid maternity leave for both private and public sector workers to 100 days. Workers will also have the option to extend their break for 30 days. That's without pay. A counterpart Senate bill proposes a paid 120-day leave. Also, what are the chances of the anti-discrimination bill to hurdle Senate scrutiny? And will the Philippines finally have a divorce law? Let's go straight to the source of the story. House Deputy Speaker and Taguig City Representative Pia Cayetano. Congresswoman, good to see you again.
Yes, good morning.
I have to get used to still calling you Congresswoman.
Call me Pia.
But then I might
That
have...
doesn't change.
But then I might have to change that to Senator again.
God willing.
Yeah, okay, but let's talk about this. Extended maternity leave, so many women, mothers, mothers-to-be looking forward to this. Let's give a little bit of a background. You were telling me before we started that you authored this already in the Senate.
Yeah, I actually wrote this.
You wrote this?
I mean, I crafted it with my own hands, with my team of female lawyers who gave birth and had maternity leave in my office. So we wrote this together, and it passed when I was still in the Senate in the 16th Congress in 2016. But the House didn't have a version that was ready to pass, so we start all over again in the 17th Congress, and by then I was in the House. So then Chairman of the Committee on Women, N. Villar, took the lead, and she got it on the floor, but it stopped. And now she's in the DOJ, and our chairperson now is Bernadette Herrera, and together, under the leadership of the new speaker, we got it passed within. It was actually, it was my first agenda with Speaker Arroyo. I said, "Ma'am, we have a maternity leave that's been pending for almost 2 years. Can we pass it right away?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure." So we got it passed. What, 3 weeks after? Well, 3 weeks after SONA.
After the SONA, after the speaker became Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo became speaker. So this is one of the first bills you passed as soon as you sat as Congresswoman. Talagang pinaglalaban mo to?
Yes, baby ko talaga to. I mean, I've helped push a number of bills, but baby ko talaga to kasi sinulat ko talaga to with my own hands.
But your version in the Senate, was it 100 days of paid maternity leave, or was it 120 days?
No, it was really 100, and the reason for that is you need to balance the requirements or limitations of the employer sectors and the needs of women. Of course, kung ako masusunod, I want to do like Vietnam, 180 days. I'm not going to deny that. But I was trying to temper it. And the reason I went for 100 is very simple. The requirement of ILO, the International Labor Organization, is 14 weeks, which if you compute 14 times 7 is 98
days.
Sabi kong baduy naman, 98-day leave. Gawin na natin 100.
Ni-round off mo na lang.
Ni-round off ko lang yun.
Yeah, I think that is the internationally accepted or required time, no? Yes, standard.
Parang
So
recommendation ng ILO.
yeah, it's 98 days, and you moved that to 100. But the one in the Senate is 120
Yeah,
days.
they pushed it to 120.
So, first you have to pass the one in the House because it's on second
reading. And I was presiding officer yesterday, and I was like, pasa na natin to, halika na. Kasi 3 days after second reading, you only need 3 days. And it's scheduled today. Kaya buti maiksi lang tong interview kasi kailangan ko mag-preside
Tatakbo ka
doon.
doon.
Tatakbo ako doon para ipasa to today.
Mabilis ka pa naman tumakbo. Wait, but sigurado nang mapapasa to. You're very confident today.
Normally naman, pag pumasa na yun ng second reading, tuloy-tuloy yan on third reading.
Okay, what are the salient points that we need to find out?
Yeah.
Okay, so from 60 normal delivery, magiging 100.
And
Paid.
75 normal delivery, magiging 100 din. Paid. Like you said, paid is very important. I have to tell you a little story. I made a call to my brother Lino, who now has 3 children and is a very supportive husband of his athlete wife, no? So I was telling him about how the maternity leave was going, and I was saying to him how there's a little bit of an issue on who pays for that maternity leave. And he's like, aba, no pay, parang no leave. Sabi ko, yan, a man who understands. Because for a lot of women, kung hindi mo working women, kung hindi mo babayaran yung leave nila, if you won't pay for their leave,
Hindi sila
a lot of
mag-leave.
them are forced to go back to work early because how many can afford not to have a salary? You already had a baby, and then now you have less money for less money to spend because you have to spend for that baby. You're going to go to work right away. So if government cannot guarantee that your leave will be paid, to me, it's like not granting leave.
It becomes useless in a way
Yes,
because
yes.
we would rather work.
Most. And another example I give is my own self. I was already a lawyer, a professional, when I had 2 babies over the span of 3.5 years. And the law firm I worked for paid for it. But you know, if they did not, mapapaisip ako. I have to admit, I'm comfortable.
Medyo may kaya ka pa, ha?
I had my own car naman. Nakatira naman kami sa aming bahay na roommate ko si Alan. At family home namin yun, so wala namang rent. But mapapaisip ako because we were newly married. Could I afford not to work for 60 days? But yun nga, thankfully, the law firm I worked for paid for it. But you know, as a professional, I already had to have to think about that.
So, Congresswoman, you feel that 100-day leave is something acceptable to employers?
Yes, we got the support of the employer groups. I mean, naturally, since they represent employers, they will say that, okay, this may be a little bit difficult. They may pose difficulties, especially because, you know, women are part of our workforce. But in the end, they express support because they know it's like you gotta bite the bullet,
Yeah.
okay? It's something we need to do. This is not for women. This is for the workforce.
It's for the family, the smallest
Exactly.
unit in the society.
It's for the family, but it's for society. Because another example I give is, like 4 years ago when I was still in the Senate, I was invited to visit Japan with ASEAN parliamentarians. So it was Japan and all the members of ASEAN. And they explained to us that at that time, what the government was pushing for is what other areas have they not explored to further improve their economy? And you know what it was? Women in the workforce. That's like their secret weapon.
Yeah.
This is one area that hindi pa daw nila na-maximize. And it included doing whatever they could to help mothers balance their personal life at home as mothers, as wives, and in the workforce.
And in fact, Congresswoman, hindi ho ba pag nanganak, what is expected or required or what is maybe standard, I guess, is for mothers to
Recovery.
breastfeed for, hindi ba, at least 6 months.
Yes,
So-
I'm glad you asked that because this is actually my whole package of benefits for women. One of the earlier bills that I had passed was the expanded breastfeeding law, which requires that all public spaces,
I know, I
offices
remember that.
have, I think you interviewed
Yes.
me on this a few years back, have promote breastfeeding basically. So, but one of the deterrents to breastfeeding is having to go back to work right away. And so, many countries have determined that if you expand that period of maternity leave, then mothers can breastfeed longer, can get more comfortable with their breast milk supply, and will be more successful in breastfeeding.
Yeah, every time I go to any location for that matter, and then there is a room for breastfeeding moms,
Yeah.
I always remember you because,
Aw,
and I'm
thank
sure that makes
you.
you feel good.
It does.
Diba?
Like if I'm in remote parts of the country and like
Yeah.
it's a terminal, like it's a bus, not a bus or a what do you call that? A pier. I'm so thrilled in a pier, you know, in like far-flung areas. There's like a breastfeeding room, which is what the law is all about.
What about the downside that maybe some are saying that employers, if this indeed is passed, might discriminate against women in terms of they might be hiring men instead of women because you have to pay the women. There are two things: the cost and how it actually affects the company.
Thank you for asking that, because that was a topic brought to our attention on the floor during the debates and even before in private meetings, no? And that's what I love also about the House, because there's a lot of members and you get a lot of feedback. I'm always very happy to respond to that, because it is a valid concern. Yes, your female workers may have to step out of the office for as of now, 60 days, and when this becomes law, 100 days, right? Hard. I had my chief of staff leave, my deputy chief of staff leave, because they got pregnant, and my chief of staff even had to have bed rest, so she was gone for 5 months at a very critical time in the Senate. But that's life, folks. That's how it is. Women give birth, men don't give birth. So what are we going to do? We have to adapt. I always say society needs to adapt to that reality.
Not the other way
around. You can't
no.
make the women be the one to suck it up, because it's society who benefits from them being in the workforce. So I even had a question. Again, I'm happy to respond to these types of questions. I'm just a little impatient when they don't understand my answer. The question was, so if a woman is the one who's availing of that maternity leave, then the SS contribution should just be from the women only. The men don't have to share. And I'm like, yeah, right. So take away the women. Who's going to give birth? Where's the next generation of Filipinos going to come from? You can't think of it that way. It has to be a collective effort.
So it's clear that the 100-day leave, paid leave, will be shouldered by the employer.
Okay, this is how it works. Under our existing law, SSS contributes what it calls maximum salary credit, which is crazy, because although I probably was still a law student or a child when SSS came up with that salary credit to me is just a way of going around what should have been the whole salary, because salary credit is pegged at 16,000. Okay, so basically SSS will only pay a maximum of 16,000. Now that's fine. The bulk of women who are availing of this are minimum wage earners. But for those who are supervisors, managers, then the company will pay the difference.
So 16,000 coming from the SSS, and the balance will have to be coming from the employer. We're going to show you a little bit of a graph on where we are in terms of this extended maternity leave compared to other countries, how they fare, how many, that's up on your screen right now. The Congresswoman was talking about Vietnam. Vietnam has 120 to 180 days. Singapore, 122, well, Cambodia, 90, Laos, 90, and Thailand, 90. So tayo, once this is passed, will be well and good.
When it's passed.
When passed.
Yeah.
This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Still to come, we'll talk about one of the most controversial bills in Congress. Will the Philippines make divorce legal? Congresswoman Pia Cayetano will still be with us after the break. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, House Deputy Speaker and Taguig City Representative Pia Cayetano. Before we will forego this topic, so there is a high probability it will be passed on third and final reading today. And then magbabaycam.
Yes.
Okay. Are there possible contentious issues sa baycam?
Well, between the 100 and 120 day, I'm very happy to support 120, but just to be sure that we consider the concerns of the employer sector, we should hear from SSS, and because sometimes there are other resource persons who attend the hearings there as well. So as a woman advocate, I'm all for 120, but I just want to be sure that we can justify that.
Divorce bill. You are also big on the divorce bill. It passed. Please correct me if I'm wrong. It passed on third and final reading.
Yes.
The former speaker was for the dissolution of marriage,
yes.
But now Speaker Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo. What is the status of the divorce bill right now?
Well, really, and you know what? On my Facebook, two things are repeatedly asked, like, Ma'am, what's the status, what's the status?
Yeah.
Divorce and maternity leave. This is so important to Filipinos, seriously. with the divorce, it's out of our hands. It's in the Senate. And I have brought it to the attention of our colleagues. The chairperson is actually Risa Hontiveros. Brought to their attention, and regardless of the sentiments of the senators, I do believe as chair, and I'm not a senator now, so I'm very careful because that's how the Senate, that's how the two houses work. Like, let us do our business. Yeah. Pero, syempre, it's a bill that we worked hard for, and that's normal that you lobby now with the House to have hearings. It being a sensitive bill, we know very well that as time goes on, as election nears, politicians tend to shy away from more controversial issues.
Right.
So that's why it becomes difficult to foresee that the Senate will be able to pass it.
How do you reconcile this, though? The president had earlier said that he's against divorce.
Yeah.
Di ba sinabi niya? Ang pinakakawawa kasi yung mga bata.
Oh,
yeah.
And you know what? Because I've known the president since 2003, I actually I believe I understand where he's coming from, because he's always saying that maraming balasubas or makapalamukha ng mga lalaki na mang-iiwan ng asawa at anak. Yun yung ayaw niya mangyari. And all of us, ayaw din natin na mangyari. And why would we want to legalize a process that makes it easier for women to be discriminated against? But the reality is, and I haven't had a chance to chat with him about
Isn't it the other way around?
The reality is, a lot of women
would want a divorce.
Would want to just live in peace. And the thing is, we've had hearings in 3 countries with a lot of OFWs, Hong Kong, Malaysia, and Japan. And our OFWs, who are a significant member of our working force, so many of them need to be released from marriages that just really have been very hurtful for them. I mean, nag-asawa na ng iba yung asawa nila. Yun yung predominante na feeling ko, in the president's good intention to protect women, hindi niya pa siguro nakita yung part na yun.
You're saying he probably just saw one side to this and did not see the other side. But how do you, I guess the next question is, defend that against the teachings of the Catholic Church?
Well, I always say that I fully respect the position of the church. I always do. I also belong to and I'm very active in my own church, and with all due respect to the leaders of our churches, I respect what the church stands for, but there are circumstances, and we've had a lot of members of various religions, even the Catholic Church, come to our hearings and say, in certain circumstances, pwede. At some point, all of them have said, in certain circumstances, pwede. And that's all we're saying. There are circumstances that you need to release this person from that marriage. We had this woman who's crying in tears. She belongs to a divorce, a divorce group. I mean, for 15 years, she's beaten up, verbally abused. She pays all the bills. The husband goes there and takes money away from her. They broke up, and she says, now I'm happy because we've broken up, but I'm still legally married to this person, So, there's so many stories like that.
Siguro kapag ganon, extraordinary circumstances, sometimes personally, I kind of relate it to what's the difference between divorce and annulment, really? I mean, you go through the process, right? Just in annulment, they say that you were never married to begin with.
That's my legal argument.
But you were married. You have pictures, you have ninongs, you have ninongs.
Exactly. That's my legal argument, because under my own personal circumstances, I'm annulled. And I'm like, how can you say we were never married? This person was the love of my life at some point. We have beautiful children. We had a life together. It's a joke to say that we were never married.
Right.
Yeah.
So you don't see the difference between an annulment and
no, but
and
if
a
it
divorce.
makes people happy, that's why the title of our bill is dissolution and divorce, because it makes it acceptable to certain sectors of our society to call it a dissolution as if it never married, because it's easier for them to reconcile it with their spiritual beliefs. But I give them that, even though it doesn't make sense to me.
Parang inikutan lang. Kung ano talaga siya, what it is really. Okay, let's go to Soji bill.
Okay.
That also passed on third and final reading. I believe it was passed even September
Earlier
of
pa,
last
yeah, about a year ago.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So,
I was actually with Congresswoman Geraldine Roman, who actually was, as we all know, the author
Yes.
and big defender of this. We were in an official trip to China together, and we had long discussions about that. And same thing as divorce, it's
Yeah.
pending in the Senate.
right.
Yeah.
What happens when you are placing what? Are you placing number 3? In
the survey.
senatorial race?
Yeah, around
3,
there,
no?
2 or 3.
2 or 3, okay. So someone like you, for now, obviously, you will be in the Magic 12 if the elections were held today. What are you going to bring to the Senate? Indeed, if you win, if you make
Yeah.
it, well, it looks like you will make it.
Yeah.
If it was done now.
Remember when I said earlier that the maternity bill is just one of the many laws I do for families, for mothers. It's really that. It's a continuation of that. I have like a list of bills that I need to work on, which sadly I won't have time in the Congress.
Yeah.
For example, further
years ka lang
strengthening, like the adoption law. We honestly tried, but partly maybe because we don't have a secretary right now. We do have an acting secretary now, who I understand is quite hands-on,
Yeah,
but they
yeah.
haven't been able to give us their technical recommendations for that bill. And we have international adoption practices, diba? We have local. We have roughly a million kids who need to be placed in good homes. Now, I have another idea that
Please
was...
pursue that.
I know, yes. I have an adopted son too. That's why I'm very passionate about it. If you recall in the news just a few days ago, there were these kids who were burned in a house. And what I tried to take out of that is, what can we do to avoid this? What I know is the parents were working. I'm not aware that they were evil person. They were working. So I feel that we need daycares that can help parents 24/7.
Kasi yun
Not just daycare na parang preschool.
Because
daycare.
that is the thing that happens all the time. Iniwan ng magulang yung mga bata, tapos doon nagkaroon ng, well, number 1, sunog.
Yeah, and then minalas.
Unfortunately, minalas, namatay yung mga bata kasi kailangan magtrabaho ng mom at
So
dad.
marami pa tayong magagawang ganon. And I have inspirations from, yun nga, strangely, this trip I took to China brought me a lot of inspiration of social welfare. But yun, I'm making my notes, and siguro sa Senate ko na yan, I'll be filing
Pagpapatuloy.
resolutions pa. The bill, it takes more time to write, but between the remaining time I have in Congress and in the Senate, it's a long.
Well, that's also because you were only spending, 3 years in
the House.
In the House of Representatives. And your Senate run is obviously, nasan ka ba? Your PDP? Where are you?
No. I've always been nationalista.
Nationalista
so
pa rin,
the
okay.
nice thing about this party is we're pretty steady, stable members. Not as much moving around for Nationalista Party members.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, how are you feeling about topping the survey? Well, being number 2.
You know, I actually still really believe in destiny. I mean, if that's your calling, I work hard. I do feel that I work hard, and it's a job I take seriously, but your ranking, stuff like that, is sometimes I feel just beyond your control.
And, well, still a couple of months to go. Again, we'll be just taking a short break. We'll be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, House Deputy Speaker and Taguig City Representative Pia Cayetano. Some people are criticizing you for being a little quiet on issues on women, when the president makes remarks against women. What happened, Congressman Pia? Are you quiet?
Nothing happened. First of all, I work in the House of Representatives. There are 300 of us. It's not like in the Senate, there's 24 of you that at any given time, you're going to be interviewed by the reporters there, no? I'm in the House of Representatives, and as you very well know, we pass so many bills, a lot of which are pending in the Senate, but the House made efforts on it. I work a lot behind the scenes. I'll give you an example, juvenile delinquency. A lot of my work is actually improving the quality of the bills by sharing my experiences and my legal background.
Right.
And it's really not something I'm loud about, because it's not as if, it's a little bit harder to critique work than to just push for your own bill. Because obviously you're working with other people, and you might be changing what the work that they've done. So I'm very sensitive about that. First of all, I came from the Senate. Di naman ako pwedeng nag-aasta doon na I feel like, you know,
Marunong na.
yeah.
Marunong
So
ka.
it's a very sensitive position that I hold. When it comes to women and family issues, my advocacies never change. I work, my brother is a Secretary of Foreign Affairs. The president is my president. So if I have concerns, I take it up directly in the same way that if you had concerns with your company, you'd take it up directly.
That's what you're
right?
doing. I mean,
That's
really,
what I
just
do.
to answer that, I guess,
Yeah.
you take it up personally, parang
I do.
ganon.
And if you ask a lot of the secretaries who are his, you know, constant
Closest.
companions, they know and they remember how I work with the president.
Yeah. So let's keep it at that.
Yeah.
All right. Congressman Pia Cayetano, thank you so much for your time. You are, of course, Deputy Speaker and Taguig City Representative. And I guess a couple of months will be a little bit busy again for you in
Yeah,
Congress. And, of
yeah.
course, transitioning to election
Election
time.
mode.
Pero February pa naman yung official campaign
February
season.
pa naman yan, yeah.
And something you're used to.
Used to, but it's
What could
always hard
change?
work.
What could change this time around during the campaign? Is there anything different you feel?
Yeah, I mean, the role of social media, you know, that changes. And remember, I started in 2004 where it was not yet computerized voting and automated. And, well, that's probably irrelevant, but I think of it in the same way I think of, like, you have these rallies, you know, with 500 people. I don't know how relevant that is today with social media. So me, what I do is I turn on my whatever I'm using at the moment, whether it's a Facebook Live, I turn it on so that automatically you
reach out to the public.
reach out to more
Yeah.
people than the 500 people you're talking
Right.
to.
Just like your brother does.
Yeah.
Diba? Si Secretary
Yeah, he's like
Alan
that. Yeah,
Peter Cayetano.
he's actually quite adept at that.
All right. Again, thank you. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
And good luck.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.